Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to be talking about tanking and what is necessary for a tank. Now, when it comes to necessities for a tank, there's very few, but one of the big ones is going to be your attributes. Um, your health. Your health is your cushion. It's important, and for the most part, the more health you have, the more of a cushion you have for your healer to heal you. Your spell resistance and physical resistance are the keys. You want those to be above 24k. Now mine are a little bit higher than 24k, but they're not over the cap. The hard cap for spell resistance and physical resistance is 32.5. So you want 24k unbuff minimum. And the reason why is when I buff up, I'm at 31 and 30. 30 is kind of considered the soft cap because the difference between 30 and 32.5 is about 1%. At 32.5 is a 50% damage reduction across the board. So you gotta hit at least 30. That what makes a tank and not squishy. And then the max health will give you a buffer to where your heal range is basically. I've seen tanks with 60k health with no physical and spell resistance and just getting one shot by everything. So the resistance is key. The health is your buffer depending on the situation. There are some dungeons where you actually need more health and some where you can go with less health. A lot of tanks will sacrifice health for max stam. 20k stam is a pretty good start. I use tri-stat food to get there, although it says it adds 0 to all of them right now. You can also use sugar skulls. It just adds a little bit more health recovery. Health recovery helps with tanking nits because then you're passively healing yourself, but you don't notice a really big difference until you get to like 2k. So it's not something you really want to focus on. A lot of tanks will go more into magic recovery. I have very little recovery in all three stats. I don't really need the recovery with my setup. A lot of tanks will go into magic recovery because stam recovery, you don't get stam recovery when you're blocking. So stam recovery basically means nothing. Magic recovery is so that they can use their magic abilities. And for some classes, the magic recovery is more important than others. With my setup, I don't need either. The other very key thing is that you want your max stam above your max magic. And the reason why is because you have zero stam recovery while blocking. So the only way you're getting stam back while blocking is by pick up shards and orbs. And if your max magic is above your max stam, then you're going to be getting magic and not stamina, which shards and orbs give quite a big boost to magic and stam when you need it. So always keep your max magic lower than your max stam, and your health is open to interpretation. I'm at 27, which is quite high. I've seen tanks with 36 do quite well. I could and would probably lower mine if I could do something more efficiency, which would probably be change one of my jewelry. But when it comes to me tanking personally, I don't put a lot of time in my tanks. Transmutation stones, gold out gear, all that stuff, that goes to my DPS. Because at the end of the day, the difference between gold gear on a tank and gold gear on a DPS is leaps and bounds. Where, you know what, a little bit extra resistance, I'm already at soft cap, I don't need it. A little bit more health, I'm already pretty healthy. So the only thing I could probably change is use transmutation crystals I could use on my DPS on my tank and transmute some of my gear bearer. Like I have crit resistance because one of my shoulders, I think my shoulders adds is impinged and not sturdy, and that's near 3% reduced block costs. Which I mean I could make my tank better, but all my resources go more towards my DPS because I'm a real solid tank with all these flaws. It doesn't need to be perfect as long as you get your stats right. The other very important thing for a tank is you need a taunt. I mean, if you're not taunting it, then it's going everywhere, and then you're not doing your job. So taunt, ransack, as Dragon Knight, the minor protection I do not get passively through any skills or anything. So the minor protection does help. A lot of them will use the pierce armor instead because that reduces spell resistance, and that makes it easier for the healers and DPS because then the healers don't have to focus too much on elemental weakness. Ransack you should add physical resistance, and that's why my physical resistance is lower than my spell resistance, is because I used to make up the difference with Ransack, but now it gives minor protection, which is actually better for a Dragon Knight. The next skill I do is my resistance buff. So like I said, 24, 25, 26. You don't really want to go above 26. That will push you to the 30k. Hardened armor versus the spike armor. This is also your ice fortress or your bone armor, your celestial rune. Every class has something. You throw it here, or I throw mine here. You can put it anywhere you want, but it's a buff that you need. Next, I use heroic slash. This is I've seen some tanks not use it. It reduces damage that the enemy does by 15 and gives you minor heroism. This way you can use your Warhorn more, you can use your ultimate more. Ultimates are very important for Dragon Knights because that's also a part of their sustainability. My next skill is kind of my resource management skill. Now on my Dragon Knight, this is Igneous Shield, because every time I hit Igneous Shield, I get stand back. I use my magic to make stamina. On a Warden, this could be the Bullnetch. On the Necro, it's the Siphon. On a Templar, it would be like Repent. Siphon attacks for Nightblade. Sorcerers, you can use Dark Deal. Dark Deal Sorcerer Taken is probably the weakest out of all of them because a lot of their things are like extra steps. Dark Deal has a cast time of a second. None of the other ones have a cast time, and 3 of them out of the 4 are pretty passive. Or 5. Chains. This is kind of my flex spot. I'll use chains here or my self heal. So for my Necro, I'll actually throw like the Ghost here. That's a self heal, and it does a 10% damage reduction. I could put Frozen Gate here if I'm on Warden. And on my DK, I either have Change or I have Dragon Blood. That's the I put the Polar for a Warden here. And typically on my front bar, I usually use Spell Wall, unless the class gives me a better ultimate or a more useful ultimate. The reason why Spell Wall, because you pop Spell Wall if people are down, and you can pick them up, and you don't have to worry about anything else. As long as the boss is still taunting on you, for the most part, nothing's going to stop you from getting that res. On my back bar, I got my range taunt. This is very important. Sometimes you need that range taunt. More important on other classes than a Dragon Knight. Then I got my immover ability. So Choking Talons, there's a couple different ones. Back bar is more open to interpretation. It's very, very loose. A Warden, you could put like you could put their flower heals and other things here. For a Necro, I would put the Totem. I keep going back to Dragon Knights, Warden, and Necros because those are the 3 best tanks with the Templar somewhere floating in there. Heroic Slash I have on my back bark. I'm using Maelstrom weapons. As long as I have had a Maelstrom sword and shield, I've used Heroic Slash in them on my back bar. This build that I currently use doesn't need the extra resources. I could easily just throw Lightning Staff on here and put Wall of Elements and be fine. That is the preferred trial raid type setup, is a Lightning Staff on the back bar to proc the off balance, so that the DPS does more damage. Because in the end, a lot of people believe that, and a lot of times they're right, that this game is all about damage. More damage you do, the less people are getting hit, the less the healers have to do, the less the tanks have to do. So it's all about buffing the DPS off. And then I throw a Necrotic Orb on here for the same reason. Sometimes your DPS, maybe you're doing a 4-man dungeon without a healer. That way you can throw them orbs so they can get resources back. Because if they run out of resources, then they can't DPS, and then it takes longer. The back bar is really open to interpretation depending on what role you're filling. And then I'll put my green Dragon Blood here. If I'm in a trial with 2 healers, then yeah, I'll throw Change right here. I don't use Change too much in a trial, but I also don't need to heal myself as much. If I'm in a 4-man contact with no healer, Dragon Blood goes on the front bar, Change goes on the back bar, because sometimes you need to hit your blood more than you need to hit your chains. staying alive is more important than pulling things in sometimes. That's pretty much for Necro and Warden. I kind of keep it very similar. It's always a ranged taunt, immovability type deals, more self heals. Like I'll throw the scythe on the Necro, um, Warhorn, Necros and Wardens and Templars, and just about every other class has something that gives like major protection or a big heal or something. Dragon Knights do not. The best thing we got is Magma Armor. So that's why I always put Spell Wall on versus anything else really. Um, Warhorn, if you have 4 Warhorns, you may not need it. So if you're like a Warden or a Necro, your Permafrost or your Colossus, the Smash would be a better option to increase the damage more. So a quick review. Most important thing is the resistance. And your health is going to be your pool, it's going to be your buffer, it's going to be how many heals you're going to need basically, or how long the healer has to heal you. Champion points are a little weird on a tank. First thing first is you kind of make it like a healer. You throw like 75 in Bless and 56 in Elfborn because none of the other blue trees really help you that much. They don't. And unfortunately, that's just how it is. I got a lot of weapon expert, a lot of master of arms because I can. There's some passives in here that aren't bad. When you block a melee attack, you can do some damage to the enemy. And then basically, if I'm not healing myself, I'm using Ransack, which is considered master of arms, and I'm using light and heavy attacks. So yeah, I have a couple in mighty. But the blue tree is, you kind of just spec it like a healer for the most part. Now the green tree, block cost reduction helps a lot. Every once in a while you do have to dodge roll, so you might want to put some points in here. I could possibly put more points in here, it wouldn't hurt. And then, like I said, stam recovery matters absolutely nothing. So just throw in magic recovery. Some tanks will throw things in tenacity, some will throw things in healthy and get more health recovery. Like I said, you won't notice a big difference in your health recovery until it gets above 2k. And after that, I did have a tank once with 10k health recovery fully buff. Imagine that, getting healed 10k every 2 seconds, I think it is. It does make it a lot tankier. It does increases your survivability quite a bit. Is it worth it? No, especially if you have a healer with you. And self heals and armor sets is typically not worth the investment. Lore Ward, 20% is a good place to put Lore Ward because if you can't break free, then especially the axes in AA, you accidentally get hit by one of those when you're not blocking and you can't break free, you're dead. Then the whole team's dead. Back forces, because we do occasionally have to bash. My bash cost was actually like 0 before they made changes with this. And I could sit there and bash and use no stamina. But after they changed things up, I do still use stamina when I'm bash now, but bash focus, so we're not draining our stam pull with bashes where we could be using it to block as well. Now the red tree is fairly open to your build. I wouldn't really go between under 20% for Ironclad, so 56. The same with Thick Skin, and 43 and Hardy Elemental Defender. That will give you a 30% damage reduction across the board. Other than that, after that, basically you want to kind of split your skills between Spell Shield, Heavy Armor Focus. Now I have a lot of Heavy Armor Focus. And the reason why is because that's what helping with my to get my resistance where it needs to be. Because you need to get that resistance where it needs to be. And championship points are a good way to do that, if you can't. If I was a Nord, I wouldn't need championship trees in any of these things, because I would get 4,000 resistance just for being a Nord. So I would probably put that into more quick recovery and Bastion defend. This one makes my shield a little stronger since I'm a Dragon Knight. That'd be helpful. Make that English shield a little bit stronger so it can absorb more damage. It's not necessary, but it would make my Ignis shield a little stronger. Ignis shield is also based off your health. it does not have a cap because of your health. So it will never reach that 50% health cap. So that's basically it for championship tree. So yeah, like you see, I have 50 points into the heavy armor focus, and that is to bring up my physical resistance to above the 24k mark. Now we will quickly go into races, and then we'll go into classes. Race really does not matter too much. Every race has something that benefits the tank. If I were to name the top 3 tanking races, it would be Nord, Imperial, and Argonian. Argonian because they get a little better healing. Could you do Red Guard? Yeah, sure. Could you do Wood Elf? Probably not recommended, since their big thing is that they give stam recovery, and your stam recovery is not really that important, but when you're not blocking, you get a little extra stam recovery. So I made this because I used to tank on Khajiit, and that was really bad back then because none of their passes actually helped tanking. So I made this guy. He's an Imperial. They've reworked their things. This first one really doesn't help an Imperial. Increase your max health. I mean, that helps tanks. Increase your max stamina. That helps me get my stamina above magic. And then Red Diamond reduces cost of all your abilities by 3%, and it gives you magic health and stam whenever you do direct damage. So my puncture gives me a little bit of health, magic, and stam back. I don't know if it was because it was a Necro. And I also don't know it because it was a Nord and not a Imperial. Because my Warden was an Imperial as well. When I did my test on tanking to see which one I preferred best, and in the same armor and everything, the Nord had the Necro had the worst when it came to sustain. It was the only one that gave me any bit of any problem. So going to that, we'll go into class. The 4 best Dragon Knights are the best single target main tank damage reduction tanks. But at the same time, they provide very little to nothing to the group. They don't provide buffs for the most part. They don't provide debuffs. They do have molten armor that can give a little bit of a shield, and the Igneous Shield to shield everybody up. Has I ever had to use Igneous Shield because my DPS was too squishy for a trial? Yes. Would it have made a big difference if I was a Nord or Necro? A little bit, but not enough that I would remake a whole character. Like I said, I've been referring to Nords and Wardens and Necros, because those are the other 2 classes. Wardens give more heals, they give more debuffs. Like I said, I found them to have more sustainability. The really big thing, the biggest thing with a Warden over the other classes is they have hand down the best self-heal. Maybe a Sorcerer with a Clan Fury pet will have a slightly better self-heal, but that will also lead to a lot of problems. The Polar Winds or the other morph of that heals them based off of their max health. Dragon Blood heals based off their missing max health. And the Necro Scythe heals off their max health, but it's something you have to hit things with. Where with the Polar Winds, you don't have to hit anything. You cast it, and like mine was over, it would be almost 50% of my health, almost 20k. It would heal me. And that's why we go into champion points and do mostly in healing, because that benefits you more than any type of damage you can really do. Because even if you put skill points in damage, you're not going. I mean, the difference between 2k and 4k is not going to be that much beneficial to the group. So you go like you're a healer, and you go into healing, and you try and get your self heals up. The other class besides, and I did kind of mention it a little bit, the Warden and the Necro would be the Templar. When the game first came out, Templars and Dragon Knights were considered the two tanking classes. They kind of wanted to make everything the same. So they have certain abilities, but they lack the self-heal. They don't have anything that heals based off their max health, but they do have a very powerful shield. So when I did tank as a Templar, I did use the Sun Shield as a big key of my damage mitigation. And then repent and stuff. You can do main tank pretty well. Off tank is kind of, you don't benefit the group as much as like a Warrior or Necro. So I say they're kind of in the middle, because it also does give an extra shard, which you can replace with Necrotic Orb. It's they're very middle ground at this point, um, because they do get some of the same passes as a Dragonite. They get the reduced damage from blocking. They get increased physical or spell resistance, and they have a lot of the same passes as a Dragonite. It's just the abilities is what make them a little different. They make them more of a support tank, where their passives make them more of a main tank. So you can throw in a Templar anywhere. A Warden or Necro would be better at off tank, where a Dragonite would be better at main tank. So I would, if I were to switch a main tank, a Templar would be a really good runner up. I prefer the Warden over the Necro, but part of it was because of the way the Necro heal and the way that I was running all Stam and Magic more on the Necro than the Warden. Um, Mundstone, Lord, Lady, whatever helps. If you want more health, go with the Lord. If you want more resistances, so you can put more things from your champion point somewhere else, go for the Lady. So basically, there's not a huge difference between all the classes. All classes can tank. I think the Sorcerer is by far the weakest. You do get that reduced cost for your, or I don't remember if it's reduced cost or a reduced damage when you block, but you have to activate an ability to get that. Your Dark Deal or Dark Conversion has a time. It takes a second. So they're more limited. The best thing about the Nightblade, don't look down there. There's a mess. The best thing about a Nightblade is that their defensive buff comes from one of their shadow abilities. Don't matter what it is, it gives it to them. So you're kind of a little bit flex because you don't have to keep reapplying your defensive buff because it basically reapplies itself. You do get damage reduction now from your Merciless Resolve. There's there's a lot of things that make Nightblade tanks. You can argue that they're as good as the other tanks, and I'll be like, alright. One of the other things is that typically to get the 25% AoE damage reduction, you have to use Blade Cloak in the dual wield, which a lot of tanks did back in the day, or another one was with the medium armor evasion. But after updates and stuff, it doesn't make it that viable. But the Nightblades get that off one of their class abilities, and that way, that can make it. It really does help with your tankiness. That 25%. He has a DPS. So now I've been over champion points. I've been over main stats. I've been over kind of like classes and races. If I were to make another tank, or if I were to make something more off tanky, because I mostly main tank, I would make probably a Warden or a Nightblade, because I like to do some weird things with Nightblades. So let's go over what I found to be my favorite main tank build. And this is the Permablock and Infinity Resource type build. But before I go on that, real quick, honorable mention, only really works for a Dragon Knight. And I was told to use it, and I didn't like it. I did try it. I will admit, I did try it. And that was Equilibrium. I didn't try it on this Dragon Knight, obviously. I have many Dragon Knights. That's basically all I play now. Where you take your health and you make it into magic. The reason I didn't like it, you basically put this where Spike Armor is, because there's a morph of it called Balance that gives you the defense buff. The reason why I didn't like it is because I'm taking my health, making it into magic, then I'm using Igneous Shield to make that magic into Stam. So at the end of the day, I spend 500 health. It goes down a little bit with passive, but I spend 5,000 health, actually 5,000 of my hit points to make 900 stamina. That conversion rate sucks, because you make 5,000 into 2,000 magic, which you make that. So it was never a never-ending process. If I was out Stam, it was Balance and the Igneous Shield, and that would have enough Stam for one ability. So it was basically a never-ending circle just using those three. And then the other thing is, this really, your own healing and your damage shield is reduced by 50%. So, especially if you're in a form of combat without a healer, you kind of are shooting yourself in the foot in a sense. I did not like it because, like I said, it was just a circle, a process circle that really didn't lead anywhere besides for me having killing myself with no magic or health and a very poor way to heal myself. So I didn't like that. Um, so what really made this build was Bloodroot Forge, and what really I never tanked by blocking until I got to Hellrog, until I started doing trials. Because up until that point, especially normal dungeons, non DLC, most tanks can take things face value and survive it. Maybe block a heavy attack every now and again, depending on the dungeon, but it really wasn't that big of a deal to me. Right, that's when I did like my 10,000 health recovery build and some other fun builds. Boringest build ever was a Templar shield build when it was at its peak, 70 something K health with a 30K shield. I didn't even have to block the warrior on normal, I just shield through it. So after getting beat to a pulp because I wasn't blocking, having to learn how to block and then run into the same problem that tanks run, and that is, I have no magic or stamina at that point. I needed a build where I could block and not have to worry about it. And I did a lot of research on that. That was when I first started tanking, and when I made this build were the two times I went online and was trying to figure out how to tank. And I've come up with this. On a Dragon Knight, there is an option for the Hemi Helm. On the other classes, you can still use the other option. It's just not as viable. So we will get down to why I can sit there and tank and block and not have to worry about any resources for the most part. Gear wise, I'm going to say this, it works on Warden the same way. Dragon Knights, we have our ultimate gives us resources. Wardens, they do not, but it still worked 100% on my Warden. Necro, a little bit of problems, but overall worked fine. And this is a set that gets a lot of ridicule and a lot of bad heap in the tanking set in World. A lot of people say, oh, you're using Black Rose, you don't need to use that, you use blah blah blah. Black Rose, and the reason is I mean, it's pre-health magic stam. I mean, those are three things that help you out. I mean, it's not like Plague Doctor where it's all health. So there are potentially sets that give you better stats, more geared for help tanking, but at the same time, we use health magic and stamina tank. The spell and weapon resist damage really doesn't do anything. But what really, the crown jewel of this set comes from the Constitution passive ability by 35%. And that's always been the crown jewel of this set. And it's not a lot. The difference between mine and people that don't use Black Robe Prison is about 300. So I get magic and stam every 4 seconds. I get 1,000 every 4 seconds just for getting hit, which that helps tremendously. Now, I went back and forth with my second set for a long time, trying to find something that will help me. I didn't use Daedra Trickery for a while, and it worked. Like I'm saying, the Black Rose is kind of the main focus point. I'm using Maelstrom weapons. I don't need them anymore. Like I said, I threw poisons on them just to get them off my inventory. This is when you deal damage with low slash or enough heavy attack, restores an additional basically 2,000 magic and stam. It does help. I don't really use it anymore. Don't need it. For my monster helm, I'm using Stonekeepers, partially because it was a pain to get, other because as a build where all I'm doing is blocking, when I'm blocking, I'm gaining stam, magic, and I'm healing myself for 6 charges. So it goes well with the same idea of Black Rose. I'm getting resources back for basically doing nothing. The other option here, especially for a Dragon Knight, but will work for just about any other class, is Bloodspawn would be the next best thing as far as a main tank. A lot of off tanks will use Sympathy of Blaze, and I guess that'd be an option, but it would hurt your resource management. Bloodspawn gives you that ultimate when it procs, and ultimate for Dragon Knight means your resources. The difference between this versus Bloodspawn on a boss is absolutely negligible. On trash mobs, the Stonekeeper will give you more resources back. And like I was saying, I was going back and forth for a long time on a secondary set. And I've used a lot of things, and I kind of fell in this one, and it works well at keeping me alive, but it also kind of helps a little bit for everybody else, and that is the Battalion Defender. Ideally, you want all this in sturdy. My helm and shoulders are not sturdy. You get, health, stam, 4% healing done. It helps. But when you block, you heal yourself or a group member for a little bit over 2k. That happens every second. Cyrodiil Crest gives more of a burst heal with the same basically type of passive, but it only heals you. So it's a little bit more selfless. Battalion Defender technically heals a little bit more. Now, a build where all I can do is sit here and block, never run out of stamina, never run out of magic for the most part. It makes no sense not to use it. I'm blocking, I'm getting resources back. I'm getting hit, I'm getting resources back. I'm blocking, I'm also healing myself and other people. So there's no reason not to wear a set like this with this type of build. It just makes sense. Cyrodiil Crest would be the probably runner up. The difference between Cyrodiil Crest versus this one, Cyrodiil Crest only heals you and heals you for 5k about. This one heals you for, we'll just round it down to 2k every second. Now when you account for cooldowns and stuff, this one actually heals a little bit more by about 1,000. But that doesn't guarantee it's going to heal you for a little bit more. This one just overall heals a little bit more. Where Cyrodiil Crest is guaranteed it's going to heal you for 5k every time you block. And I think the cooldown is 4 seconds. So one of those two, they're both fairly easy to get. Now, where I could change and get a little bit less health and everything is on my jewelry. Infused jewelry, reduced block costs. And the reason why is way back when I looked up this build, if you did enough reduced cost plus, you would basically only need about a 200 stam every block to do basically have a no block cost. At that point, you'd be recovering more stam than you were losing with your block. So basically, at that point, 200 stam, you get 900 from Igneous Shield. You're gaining stam more than you're blocking. Since then, they've changed it. It still works. The only other thing I changed is these two are still healthy. I could technically make one into infuse. It will help a little bit with my block costs. We bring my health down a little bit. And overall, it's not that important for this build. The way I have it set out, this works perfectly fine. The amount that would help would be negligible compared to the amount that I would lose. My weapon should probably be infused with the Crusher enchant. There's another reason because they kind of nerfed the way enchant worked on one-handed weapons. So lightning staff on the back bar of Crusher enchant infused would be even better. But I don't run that lightning bar. I could. It'd be a real easy fix. Be a real easy change. So that's basically my build in a nutshell. Basically, I get resources back for taking damage, and I get resources back for blocking. So in the end, I get resources back for standing there and going like this. And I can block for an infinite amount of time and basically not lose stamina. The thing that makes me lose stamina is Taunting and Low Slash, because those are the only two stamina abilities I have. This one makes me lose magic, but I get magic back when blocking too. Igneous Shield makes my magic into stamina. So that's a win-win. That is my permabop build. If I was off tanking, or if I was going to do more of a meta tanking, and I have all the sets, you wear all costs on the on the sword and board, on the lightning staff, and on the jewelry. I don't think I have them on this character. I am full. Powerful Assault is a runner-up. If you were going to go all damage, have one tank where Alkosh and Claw. I call it Claw. I think I have a chest piece on this character. Yeah. Oh man, I'm going to butcher that name. I call it Claw. This is the other DPS set. So someone wears like Alkos in this, you're giving the minor courage buff, you're giving the penetration, and then someone else wears powerful assault and Eben, then you're giving an extra 1,000 health, you're giving even more damage because powerful assault gives another 157 weapon and spell damage. And then the Ebens just kind of help if you want to go more damage. You can use Torok's Pack with the Crusher enchant on the back bar for even more defense debuff. That would be probably the 2 tank optimal damage type deal. The problem is Torok's Pack, not a tanking set. Eben is a tanking set. At least that one's a tanking set. Powerful Assault, not a tanking set. Alkos, not a tanking set. Resource Management, horrible. Ability to stay alive is also horrible. You're really relying on your healer with those type of sets, and that's why they're kind of more for off tanks than main tanks. Monster Helm, Sympathy of Blade, or Lord Dust Warden would be the big ones. So I'm going to quickly, the most important thing, the thing that you cannot be a tank without, a taunt, which there are 3 of them. They're Inner Fire, Ice Staff Heavy, and the Puncture. You need one of those 3. You at least need one of those 3. Preferably, it's Puncture and Inner Fire and not Ice Attack Heavy. Max Health, that's your cushion. It's important, but there's no set value. Run what you feel is comfortable. What is absolutely necessary? Spell and physical resistance. Above 24k on buff. Buff below 32k. 32 and a half, but those are what makes a tank a tank. Now my food did wear off, so you can see my unbuff, max magic, max health, and max stam. Another thing, real quick, all heavy. There's no, the Juggernaut passive gives you more health than the Undaunted one with the extra piece of, you lose 2% of your max health using the Undaunted passive for wearing all 3 types of armor. So there is absolutely no reason not to go all heavy. The 2% or 4% you would gain from the Undaunted passive to your magic and stam is really negligible compared to the 2% health loss for not wearing heavy. It also increases your constitution, which is necessary for this setup. It also increases your resolve for having all heavy. I don't know, these 2 are not effective. So those are absolute musts, is get all heavy armor. Just don't even think about the Undaunted Mantle passive. It's really not going to help you that much. Also potions. That's why Argonian is a good race. If I'm running out of magic or stam, it's potions, it's ultimate, it's Immune Shield, because my magic's just for buffing me for the most part. Maybe throwing orbs out. Pulling things if it change. So that's not having magic's not going to make me that much worse of a tank. As long as I can keep my buff up, I'll be fine. So that's basically it. Those attributes are more important than anything else. Those races and classes kind of outperform the others, but like I said, when it comes to race, everything benefits in the end. If you want to tank on a sorcerer, feel free to tank on a sorcerer. I probably wouldn't recommend it. I've done it. I've tanked on every race, every class. Well, maybe not every race, but I've tanked on every class. I've healed on every class, and I heal on Nightblade, keep in mind, so I'm not the normal healer, because I find healing incredibly boring. Go to look at the champion trees real quick again. Like I said, want that break free, you need that magic recovery, you want that reduced block cost. Make it like a healer. Everything else is kind of just make sure you get that resistance is where it needs to be. I wouldn't go any lower than 20% Ironclad, Thick Skin, Hardy, Elemental Defender, keep them at 10. Everything else is open to your playstyle. Like I said, when it comes to me, I basically block. I can taunt while block. I can low sus when I can use all my buffs. Might throw a light attack in there every once in a while just to keep my ultimate going up. Do I heavy attack? Only when I pull. easily. I don't typically heavy attack that much. I don't need it on this build. If I'm running the off tank sets like Alcos, and I typically run Claw and Alcos, I will occasionally heavy attack. I don't have my full set on this character, still on my Necro when I was testing my Necro out. So I hope this helps everybody. I hope you learned something at least. And I will see you guys on the next video.